Imagine this for a moment. You're floating above your own body, watching everything unfold from a place that feels strangely calm. There's no pain, no fear, just a quiet sense of awareness. Then, you're pulled into a tunnel, surrounded by darkness, yet moving toward a light that feels more real than anything you've ever experienced. It's warm, peaceful, almost like home. Now here's the question that has fascinated humanity for centuries. What if this isn't just imagination? What if this is something people across the world have actually experienced? Welcome to Bookpedia World. Today, we're diving into one of the most thought-provoking and controversial books ever written, Life After Life, by Dr. Raymond A. Moody Jr. This isn't just a book. It's a collection of real stories, real people, real experiences that challenge everything we think we know about life and death. Dr. Moody, a philosopher and medical doctor, spent years studying individuals who were declared clinically dead or came incredibly close to dying, only to return with vivid, unforgettable memories. These aren't random dreams or hallucinations. What's fascinating is how similar these experiences are, even among people from completely different backgrounds, cultures, and beliefs. People who had never met, telling almost identical stories. In this video, we're going to explore those stories together. You'll hear about the sensation of leaving the physical body, the feeling of peace that replaces fear, and the mysterious journey through darkness toward a brilliant light. But it doesn't stop there. Many describe encountering a presence, a being of light, that radiates unconditional love and understanding. Others talk about reliving their entire life in a matter of moments, seeing not just what they did, but how their actions affected others. And then comes the most surprising part. They come back. Back to their bodies. Back to life. But they don't return the same. Almost every person Dr. Moody studied reported a deep transformation, a shift in how they see the world, their purpose, and what truly matters. Material things lose their importance, fear of death fades away, and what replaces it is a stronger sense of compassion, love, and meaning. Now, whether you're a skeptic or someone who believes in life beyond death, this book doesn't force you to accept anything. Instead, it invites you to listen, to reflect, and to question. Because, at its core, Life After Life isn't just about death. It's about understanding life in a deeper, more meaningful way. As we go through this summary, keep an open mind. You don't have to agree with everything, but allow yourself to explore the possibilities. Because sometimes the biggest breakthroughs in our thinking come from the questions we've been too afraid to ask. So sit back, relax, and let's begin this journey into the unknown, into the mystery of what might happen after life. Begins with a question that has lived in the human mind for as long as we've existed. What really happens when we die? Not from a religious perspective, not from myths or beliefs passed down through generations, but from real experiences shared by people who have actually come close to death and returned. Dr. Raymond Moody opens this journey not with conclusions, but with curiosity. He doesn't claim to have all the answers, and that's what makes this so compelling. Instead, he introduces us to a series of individuals, ordinary people from different walks of life, who all went through extraordinary moments where their lives hung by a thread. Some were victims of accidents, others suffered from severe illness, and a few were even declared clinically dead before being revived. But what connects them all is what they experienced in those critical moments. At first, these stories seemed deeply personal, almost too unique to compare. But as Moody continued his research, something unexpected began to emerge. Despite differences in age, culture, religion, and background, many of these individuals described strikingly similar experiences. It wasn't just a coincidence, it was a pattern. People spoke about hearing the moment they were pronounced dead, as if they were still present, still aware. Some described a strange sensation, like being pulled out of their physical body. Imagine looking down and seeing your own body lying there, while you exist separately, conscious and observing. For many, this wasn't frightening. It was surprisingly peaceful. There's a moment in several accounts where confusion mixes with calmness. They try to communicate with the people around them, but no one responds. It's as if they're invisible, existing in a different layer of reality, and yet their awareness feels sharper than ever. No pain, no panic, just a quiet sense of detachment. Moody doesn't rush to label these experiences. He carefully presents them, allowing us to sit with the stories and notice the similarities ourselves. He calls this phenomenon near-death experiences, or NDEs, a term that would later become widely recognized. But in this first chapter, it's not about defining the experience. It's about introducing it, allowing the reader, or in this case the listener, to step into these moments and feel the weight of what these people went through. What makes this chapter powerful isn't just the descriptions, but the emotional shift these individuals report. Many say that in those moments fear simply disappears. The fear of dying, the fear of the unknown. It's replaced by a sense of calm they had never felt before. It's almost as if, in stepping outside of life, they discovered something about it that most of us never get to see. As you listen to these accounts, you might find yourself questioning what you've always believed about death. Is it an end? Or could it be a transition? Are these experiences simply the brain reacting under extreme stress? Or are they glimpses into something beyond our current understanding? Chapter 1 doesn't try to answer these questions. Instead, it does something more important. It opens the door. It invites you to explore, to think, and to feel. Because sometimes the beginning of understanding isn't about finding answers. It's about being willing to ask the right questions. And as we move forward, those questions only become deeper, more intense, and even more fascinating. Takes us deeper into the experience itself, into the actual moment of dying, as described by the people who lived through it. If Chapter 1 opened the door to curiosity, this chapter gently pulls you inside and asks you to sit with something most of us spend our lives trying not to think about. Dr. Moody begins to organize the stories in a more structured way here. Instead of isolated accounts, we start to see a sequence, a kind of pattern that many near-death experiences seem to follow. And it often begins in a moment of crisis. A sudden accident, a heart stopping, a body shutting down, and then something unexpected happens. Several individuals describe hearing a strange sound at the very beginning. Sometimes it's a buzzing noise, sometimes a ringing, and for others it feels like a loud, overwhelming vibration. It's not painful, but it's intense, almost like a signal that something is changing. And then, almost instantly, that intensity gives way to something completely different. There's a sensation of separation. People talk about feeling as though they've left their physical body behind. Not in a dramatic or forceful way, but in a smooth, almost effortless transition. One moment they're inside their body, and the next, they're not. They're above it, beside it, or simply outside of it, observing everything from a completely new perspective. What's fascinating is how real and clear this state feels to them. In fact, many say it feels even more real than normal life. Their thinking is sharper. Their awareness is heightened. They can see details they would have never noticed before. And yet, when they try to interact with the physical world, they realize they can't. They speak, but no one hears them. They reach out, but no one responds. There's a quiet realization that begins to settle in. Something has changed in a fundamental way. But instead of fear, what most people report is a surprising sense of peace. The pain they were experiencing just moments ago is gone. The anxiety disappears. It's replaced by a calmness that's hard to put into words. For some, it feels like relief. For others, it feels like freedom. Dr. Moody also introduces the idea that time begins to behave differently in these experiences. Events don't unfold in the usual linear way. Everything feels immediate, almost as if past, present, and awareness are blending together into a single moment. This creates a feeling that's both disorienting and deeply fascinating. And then, there's the growing awareness of moving somewhere, or toward something. not always in a physical sense, but more like a pull, a direction, as if the experience isn't random, but part of a journey that's unfolding step by step. What makes this chapter so powerful is how it transforms the idea of dying from something terrifying into something unexpectedly calm. It doesn't deny the seriousness of death, but it challenges the assumption that the moment of dying is filled with pain and fear. According to these accounts, it's often the opposite. Still, Dr. Moody remains careful. He doesn't claim that this is what happens to everyone, or that it proves anything beyond doubt. Instead, he presents these experiences as they are, consistent, detailed, and deeply human. As you listen, it's hard not to imagine yourself in that position. What would you feel? Would you be afraid, or would you experience that same sense of peace? Would you try to return, or would you be drawn further into the unknown? Chapter 2 doesn't give you final answers, but it does something just as important. It reshapes the way you think about the final moments of life. And as we move forward, the journey becomes even more mysterious. Because what comes next is something many describe as unforgettable: the passage through darkness and the appearance of light. Is where the experience begins to take on a more vivid, almost surreal quality. This is the part many people remember most clearly: the journey through darkness and the encounter with light. After the initial separation from the physical body, many individuals describe a sensation of movement. It's not like walking or running. It's faster, smoother, almost effortless. And then they find themselves surrounded by darkness. But this isn't the kind of darkness that brings fear or anxiety. It's quiet still, almost comforting. Some describe it as a tunnel. Others say it feels like a corridor, a passage, or even an empty space that seems to stretch infinitely. The descriptions vary slightly, but the core feeling remains the same: a sense of being guided or drawn forward, as if there's a destination ahead, even if they can't fully see it yet. And then, something changes. In the distance, a light appears. At first it's faint, barely noticeable. But as they move closer, it becomes brighter, more powerful, and yet strangely, it doesn't hurt their eyes. It's not harsh like the sun. Instead, it feels warm, inviting, almost alive. Many people struggle to describe it because it doesn't feel like ordinary light. It feels like something more. What's even more fascinating is the emotional impact of this light. People don't just see it, they feel it. There's an overwhelming sense of peace, love, and acceptance that seems to come from it. Imagine feeling completely understood, completely accepted, without judgment of any kind. That's how many describe this moment. For some, this light feels like a presence, almost like a being. Not in a physical form, but something conscious, aware, and deeply connected to them. Different individuals interpret it in their own way. Some see it through a spiritual lens, others don't label it at all. But almost everyone agrees on one thing: the presence of the light feels real. There's also a sense of communication that happens here, but it's not through words. There's no spoken language, no sound. Instead, it's like thoughts are being exchanged instantly. Questions are answered before they're even fully formed. And the message that many people receive is simple, yet powerful. You are loved, and your life has meaning. At this stage, fear seems to disappear completely. The unknown no longer feels threatening. Instead, it feels like stepping into something familiar, something that was always there, just beyond our awareness. Dr. Moody presents these accounts carefully, without forcing any interpretation. He doesn't tell us what the light is or what it represents. Instead, he lets the consistency of these experiences speak for itself. People from different cultures, different beliefs, all describing something remarkably similar. And yet, there's still a sense that the journey isn't complete. Many individuals report that as they approach this light, there's a moment of pause, almost like a boundary, a realization that going further might mean something final. Some feel a choice, while others feel a gentle pull back, as if their time hasn't come yet. This chapter leaves you with a strange mix of wonder and curiosity. It challenges the idea that darkness is something to fear, and instead presents it as a pathway, one that leads to something brighter, something deeply comforting. As you reflect on these stories, it's hard not to ask yourself, what is that light? Is it a creation of the mind or something beyond it? Is it the end of the journey, or just the beginning of something we don't yet understand? And just when you begin to process these questions, the journey continues. Because in the next chapter, the experience becomes even more personal, more emotional, as people describe encounters that feel profoundly real and impossible to forget. Moves into one of the most emotional and deeply personal parts of the entire experience, the encounter with what many describe as a being of light. By this point in the journey, individuals have already passed through the darkness and approached that warm, radiant light. But now the experience becomes more than just movement or observation. It becomes interaction. Not in a physical sense, but in a way that feels even more direct and powerful than words. People often describe the light not just as something they see, but as something that is aware of them. It feels conscious, alive, and more importantly, it feels deeply compassionate. There's an overwhelming sense that this presence understands them completely. Every thought, every emotion, every moment of their life without any need for explanation. And yet, there is no judgment. That's one of the most striking elements repeated across so many accounts. Individuals say they felt completely exposed, as if nothing about their life was hidden. But instead of fear or shame, they experienced total acceptance. Imagine standing in front of something that knows everything about you, the good, the bad, the regrets, the mistakes, and still responds with nothing but understanding and love. That's how many people describe this encounter. Communication in this state doesn't happen through spoken language. There are no voices, no conversations in the traditional sense. Instead, it's like an instant exchange of thoughts. Questions are asked and answered in the same moment, without words ever being formed. And the questions themselves are often simple yet deeply meaningful. Things like, what have you done with your life? What have you learned? How have you loved others? But these aren't asked in a harsh or demanding way. There's no pressure, no accusation. It feels more like an invitation to reflect, to truly see your life from a different perspective. And then comes one of the most powerful aspects of this chapter, what many call the life review. People describe reliving moments from their lives, but not just as memories. It's more immersive than that. They don't just see what happened, they feel it again. And even more surprising, they often experience those moments from the perspective of others. If they hurt someone, they feel that person's pain. If they showed kindness, they feel the impact of that kindness. It's as if every action, every choice, ripples outward, and in this moment, they're able to understand those ripples completely. This isn't presented as punishment. No one is condemning them or telling them they failed. Instead, it's a moment of awareness, a chance to truly understand the weight and meaning of their actions. And for many, this becomes one of the most transformative parts of the entire experience. Dr. Moody presents these accounts with a careful balance. He doesn't claim that this being of light is a specific religious figure or assign it a fixed identity. In fact, people interpret it in different ways depending on their beliefs. But the core experience remains remarkably consistent. The presence of something that embodies pure understanding, compassion, and clarity. There's also a sense during this encounter that the journey has a purpose, that life itself isn't random or meaningless, but part of something larger, something we may not fully understand while we're living it. And yet, even in this profound moment, there's an underlying realization that the experience isn't meant to continue, at least not yet. Many individuals describe reaching a kind of boundary or being told, again, not through words but through understanding, that it's not their time, that they must return. And that realization brings a mix of emotions. On one hand, there's a deep reluctance to leave this state of peace and connection. On the other, there's a recognition that something unfinished is waiting for them back in the physical world. Chapter 4 leaves you with a powerful thought. What if the true measure of life isn't success, money, or status, but something much simpler? How we treat others, how we grow, and how we understand the impact of our actions. And as the journey continues, the next step becomes inevitable. The return brings us to the final and perhaps most surprising part of the journey, the return to life. After everything, the separation from the body, the passage through darkness, the encounter with the light, and the deeply personal life review, there comes a moment that many describe as a turning point. It's the realization that they cannot stay. Whether it feels like a choice, a gentle push, or an unspoken understanding, the message is clear. It's not their time yet. And this moment is often filled with conflict. On one side, there's an overwhelming sense of peace, comfort, and belonging in that other state. Many individuals say they felt more alive there than they ever had before. There was no pain, no fear, no confusion, only clarity and calm. Leaving that behind isn't easy. In fact, some people describe resisting the return, not wanting to go back to the physical world with all its struggles and limitations. But on the other side, there's something pulling them back. Sometimes it's the thought of loved ones, family, children, responsibilities left unfinished. Other times it's simply a sense that their journey in this life isn't complete yet. And so, the return begins. What's striking is how sudden it often is. People describe being pulled back into their bodies almost instantly. One moment they're in that peaceful, expansive state, and in the next they're back, inside a physical body that feels heavy, mahdud, and often in pain. The contrast is intense. Imagine going from complete freedom to physical limitation in a split second. It's not always a gentle transition. For many, it's abrupt and even shocking. Some recall hearing voices again, doctors, nurses, loved ones, people trying to revive them. Others remember the exact moment their heart started beating again, or when they took their first breath after being gone. It's as if the entire experience collapses back into a single point, and they're suddenly grounded in reality again. But here's where Chapter 5 becomes truly powerful, not in the return itself, but in what comes after, because no one comes back the same. Dr. Moody emphasizes this transformation again and again. People who have gone through near-death experiences often report a complete shift in how they see life. Their priorities change. The things that once seemed important, money, status, material success, begin to lose their grip. And in their place, something deeper takes over. A greater appreciation for life, a stronger sense of purpose, a deeper connection to others. Many say they become less afraid of death, not because they fully understand it, but because they felt something beyond it, something peaceful, something meaningful. That fear, which once shaped so many of their decisions, simply fades away. There's also a noticeable increase in compassion. People become more patient, more understanding, more aware of how their actions affect others. It's as if that life review, the experience of feeling everything they've done from different perspectives, leaves a lasting imprint on them. At the same time, not everything is easy after they return. Some individuals struggle to put their experience into words. They worry about being misunderstood or dismissed. Others feel a sense of isolation, as if they've seen something so profound that it separates them from those who haven't experienced it. And yet, despite these challenges, most agree on one thing. They wouldn't trade the experience for anything. It changed them, in ways that go far beyond explanation. Dr. Moody doesn't end this journey with a final answer or a definitive conclusion. Instead, he leaves us with something more valuable, a perspective, a collection of experiences that invite us to rethink what we believe about life, death, and everything in between. Because maybe the real message of life after life isn't about proving what happens after we die, but about transforming how we live right now. And as you step away from this journey, one question quietly lingers in your mind. If you knew your life would be seen, felt, and understood in its entirety, would you live it any differently? As we come to the end of this journey, take a moment and really think about everything you've just heard. Life after life doesn't try to force a belief on you. It simply opens your mind to possibilities. real people, real experiences, all pointing towards something deeper than what we see on the surface of life. Maybe the biggest takeaway isn't about what happens after death, but how we choose to live before it. Because if there's one thing these experiences make clear, it's this: every action matters. Every word, every choice, every moment of kindness or harm, it all leaves an impact. So the question isn't just, is there life after death? The real question is, are you truly living right now? If this video made you think, even a little, then it did its job. And if you enjoy deep, life-changing book summaries like this, make sure to subscribe to Bookpedia World, because here, we don't just summarize books. We explore ideas that can transform the way you see life. Drop a comment below and tell me, what do you believe happens after death? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep questioning everything.